Another, yeah, from this is
Όχι, ας το στείλει σε μένα και εγώ... Hello, everybody. Here we are with the fourth and final day of this year's Fest of Fests, with main topic narrative structures in the digital era. And it's my honor and pleasure to have with us to moderate this panel David Kleeman, the guru of children's media worldwide. Please welcome him.
Kalispera. If you can bring up my slides, I feel like I'm going to make a leap in time to some extent, because we've talked the last 3 days substantially about film and traditional film and film seen in cinema, short subjects and such. I'm going to leap us into the virtual worlds of Roblox. For those of you who are not familiar with Roblox, think of it as the YouTube of games. There are 9 million games on this online platform, and you can play one or you can play as many as you like, but you can also build games. So like YouTube, it's built for creators. Let's go ahead to the next slide. The company that I work for, Dubbit, was founded by teens. It is still in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the youngest board of directors of any company, because it was 2 scoutmasters who recruited their scouts to become the board and then said, what do you want to do? And what they wanted to do was build a virtual world. So you can see that was what it looked like 25 years ago. This is our team now. They're all real people, but they're all virtual. Those are all their Roblox avatars, how they represent themselves. Next slide. And this is the world that started it all. It looks very simple now, doesn't it? It's a very basic world but they could walk around and talk to each other, and there was branding inside. You can see the Red Bull. But there was not a lot to be done with it. It was just a place for them to gather virtually. Next slide. So why did we make this shift? Why did we suddenly become a Roblox studio where now 80% of what we are building is Roblox games? Why did we go from virtual worlds, from educational technology, from app games to platform games like Roblox? Next slide. Well, I think the answer to that lies in, if you've ever run across Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton was a bank robber, and they asked him, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. Next slide. So we went to Roblox, not because that's where the money is, but because that's where the kids are today. You can look at some of these figures that are just remarkable. They just hit a record, the platform just hit a record 2 weekends ago of 13 million people playing at the same time. So worldwide, 13 million people on the platform. Daily active users is almost 100 million. So people who are coming on every day to play on Roblox. And if you convert that 21.7 billion hours spent, and that's just in the first quarter of 2025, it comes out to several 100 million person years. So this is where young people are today. They are spending their time on Roblox, on Fortnite, which is a similar platform, Minecraft, which you may be more familiar with, been around a little bit longer. Next slide. Why? Why are young people going to these platforms? Go ahead to the next. We can look at it as 3 generations of user-generated content, of immersive platforms. The first generation, which you millennials in the audience probably are most familiar with, is the one-dimensional user-generated content. You could write a blog, you could type, you could message your friends, and you could send photos, but really it was very one-dimensional. The second generation that Gen Z was really born into is video. So think of it as 2-dimensional. It's not only images, but moving images. So that was Gen Z. Now Gen Alpha, those who are now up to about, this is a little old, it's about 15 now, Gen Alpha. They have never known a time without mobile digital technology. They were born into the smartphone era. It's gone with them everywhere that they go. And so they are now playing in 3D immersive worlds and building for 3D immersive worlds. You can have video in them. We'll talk about that later. But you can see how the attraction of these user-generated worlds has grown over time. Next slide. So why are they so popular? For Gen Z and Gen Alpha, these immersive platforms, user-generated content platforms. So YouTube would fit into that as well, TikTok, where the people who are on the platform also create the platform. These are generations that strongly believe nothing about us without us. They expect to be consulted on all the content that they look at, on all the brands that they engage with. They want to feel like someone is listening to them. And you really need to build trust with them by doing that. The platforms, therefore, have become central to how they represent themselves, to building community. When I was little, my only option for friends were the people on my block, and it didn't matter if we really shared the same interests, but they were what I had. Now, if you are into something, into a fandom that's a little more obscure, you can always find other people who are similarly into that. That's the games platforms are primarily where they're expressing their fandoms or where they're engaging with communities. The video platforms are also where they're recreating the brands and the stories that they love and sharing them out to their friends. It's become this way because the creator tools are so simple for them. 7-year-olds are building games on Roblox. They're very simple. They're not very, they're not complex. They're not deep. So 7-year-olds are building, but our studio, which is a professional studio of 100 people, is also building games. So they are easy to learn, difficult to master, I would say. And then I think I'll get to that last point, the learnification of gamings later. So what does this mean for storytellers, since this is a gathering of storytellers and creators? Next slide. This is one of my favorite stories from the creator world. This is an 11-year-old boy. He's the son of a children's media researcher, so I know he's real, who built the entire town from Encanto in Minecraft, recreated the entire town from the film. And when he was done, that wasn't enough. He, shot for shot with his iPad, recreated the video of We Don't Talk About Bruno. And that's what I call intrinsic motivation to be a creator. He had a vision in his mind, and he had the tools that were able to bring it out. Go ahead. This is not going to change. These platforms are not going to go anywhere, and for several reasons. One is, as I mentioned, this is where Gen Alpha and Gen Z find their community. They collaborate, they socialize. A lot of the games they play now are not competitive, they're collaborative. They explore, there are deep worlds you can go into, they build. They really can do all different kinds of things on this one platform. And this creates what we call a flywheel, which is the more people who are building games and experiences for the platform, the more people come to play them. Those people come and they spend money in the games. By the way, Roblox is free. There are lots of ways to spend money, but you don't have to. You can play for free all you want. So they spend money in the games, buying outfits for their avatars, buying tools, buying advantages in games. And that makes, and other people look at that and say, well, I'm going to build for that because there's an audience there, there's money there. And so more people build, more people come to the platform, more people build, more come to the platform, and it keeps growing. These platforms are symbiotic. People who play on Roblox, when they run into a problem in a game, when they want to ask a question about it, when they want to connect with other people who like that game, they go straight to YouTube and TikTok. So these platforms are building each other. And finally, AI is going to turbocharge these platforms because I said the tools are easy now. Imagine how easy they'll be with the addition of artificial intelligence. Next. So is gaming the future of TV and cinema? Since we're here to talk about narrative structures, I'm going to give you just 4 quick examples of where I think these gaming platforms are going to be inherent to the future of video and cinema. And then we'll bring up the panel. Next, you can already watch TV in the metaverse. There is in these games. Roblox has given permission to Spin Master, a toy company which owns a brand called Bakugan, which is a battling game. Bakugan already had a battling world in Roblox. They had a place where you could go and battle your Bakugans, I guess, and where you could buy items for your avatar and things like that. But they got permission from Roblox to put episodes of the Bakugan animated series in. When you go into their game, it asks you, do you want to play an episode? And you say yes, and you choose your episode, and you see in the distance this screen. And you run over to the screen, and you're in kind of a public square, you can see, with lots of avatars there. And they're all watching the screen and bouncing. It took me about 5 minutes to realize they're not watching the same thing I'm watching. They came in and chose an episode. They came in at a different time. So they are watching, but in a virtual world, it doesn't matter. It is, if you know the book Bowling Alone, it's a little bit like Bowling Alone. It is community that doesn't really exist. It's a little freaky, maybe more than a little freaky, but this may be where we're headed for television in the metaverse. Next. You can create programs in Roblox. This is, there's a company called Wind Sun Sky that is, if you remember Machinima, They are building television programs in Roblox where they play within the game and record it at the same time, and then take those recordings and put them on YouTube. So narrative coming out of the game platform and onto YouTube. And then next. Someone has created a game or an experience in Roblox called Clip It, where you can capture in-game movements. You can essentially, it's like directing a scene from a play. You can create that scene inside the game and then export it to the collection of stories there. And you can actually link to a marketplace so that if somebody likes the outfit the avatar is wearing in your game, they can go and buy it for their own avatar. And finally, we've talked in the last couple of weeks, we've heard in the news in the last couple of weeks of Trump has threatened to put tariffs on films, and the first reaction is this is going to make the cost of going to the cinema, $30, $40 in the US. It occurs to me that in a decentralized world like Roblox, in a place where it doesn't really, the company exists in one place, but the content comes from all over the world, maybe we could be going to the cinema in Roblox. You could buy your ticket. You can already buy tickets for real life cinema in some Roblox games. You buy your ticket and you go to the theater and it's there for you. You can buy avatar accessories. So there's a financial model for this as well as a creative and social model for it. I think that's it for now. They've asked me to play some quick clips from some of the games that we've made for Roblox, that Dubbit has made. I think maybe I would say if you can keep the sound down about half level, I may talk over them a little just to say how they differ from each other. So this is the compilation reel of all the games or a lot of the games that we've been making. You can see it's a very deep world. These are not just small spaces to explore. Some of them are almost infinitely explorable. And one of the interesting things about games is that when you finish a game, that's the start. Because you can always update the game, you can always expand the game, you can see from the statistics if people are just not enjoying certain parts of it, and so you can cut away those parts and add different ones that you can see they are enjoying. If you knew Roblox in the early days, you probably knew the very blocky avatars. Now avatars can look like anything from almost photorealistic all the way through to and back to those very simple kinds of avatars. There are performances in Roblox. You can have live concerts. We've produced a couple of live concerts where millions of people show up at the same time to watch a performance that's been recorded in it. We did one of the K-pop bands and had just millions of people come and watch either live or just after that. Let's go ahead and cut it there because I want to get to the panel. That's a good example, a good sample of what we do. And if I can ask the panel to come join me on stage. So this is a very broad-ranging panel that we've got. I'm really excited about this because we've got people who are coming at these new worlds and how young people engage and entertain and exchange and educate themselves in these worlds from a lot of different perspectives. So I think I'm just going to go straight into introducing the first speaker. Each person's going to have a chance to speak for a few minutes, and then we'll have a conversation afterwards. And I'm going to start with Irene Andreapoulou. Happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. The news?
Facebook is a wonderful thing in some ways. Can you tell us a little more about Creative Hub for Greece and what you're doing with games in particular?
Thank you. We may also start the presentation. Thank you very much for the invitation, Athena and Michael Kakoyannis Foundation. We have been supporting previously as ECOME since 2018, the Fest of Fest. We have been working together since day one, its inception, so we're very happy to be here again. Today, I am representing the Hellenic Film and Audiovisual Center Creative Greece. This is the new Uber organization on creative, cultural, creative industries in Greece. Next slide. And we're actually focusing on developing a national strategy on game development with three main pillars. It's gaming for the industry, the entertainment industry, with funding initiatives. A cash rebate on video games is under implementation right now. We're also working on training, capacity, skills development for young gamers who wish to work with the gaming industry. And also gamification, gaming in schools, we're pretty active in that sector as well. So why games? Because as we see games today, they are no longer tools for entertainment. They are learning tools, they are research vehicles, they are engines for empathy and social change through serious games. And to unlock this potential, we need to work together with actors. So one of these actors in Greece is the Hellenic Film and Audiovisual Center Creative Greece, and more specifically Creative Hub. Next slide, please, which is the new hub for innovation, educational, and development in the broad section of culture and creative industries, but we are pretty active on games per se. Next slide, please. So we have a vision, which is a trifold vision. We're working on innovation and development in games, on cultural digital media heritage, and education and media literacy. Because gaming is and gamification is part of creative media literacy, where you unlock the creative potentials of the younger generation, the users, and maybe professionals in the future. Next slide. Yeah, this is our very active section on creative literacy, where gamification, as I told you, is important because we're working on the creative engagement with the media, with games. We want to turn the negative element that is around games in the public discourse in a positive impact, how to do something creative out of playing and creating games, very important in the school, in the classroom, towards to becoming screen-wise citizens, critical consumers, and active citizens of the future. Next slide, please. We can go on. This is just the target group. So we focus on game development with social and cultural impact. We work with games as tools for learning, empathy, and change. As I told you, games that combine creativity, research, and pedagogy in order to unlock their full potential. Next slide. This is our main strategic pillars. So as I told you, talent development through funding schemes is very important for us. And talent development can also be elaborated through research and development in AI, XR technologies, and cloud gaming. Also with producing cultural content through international partnerships. We work closely with UNESCO, the European Commission, and of course we are the hosting organization of CIFES. And of course, the funding schemes, they are mostly focused on the startups in order to create this strong competitive gaming ecosystem in Greece. Next slide. So our upper goal is to establish Greece as a Mediterranean game hub. This was the focal point of our national strategy on gaming that was launched some months ago. And in order to promote games for good, serious games with educational, cultural, social, and environmental impact, to bridge creativity, technology, innovation, and purpose in game development, and supporting sustainable cross-sectoral collaboration. Next slide. So in this sense, we believe that gaming can lead to empowering youth community through digital creativity, through learning, through play. And since we're also celebrating the European Digital Citizenship Year in 2025, we're very active on putting forward all these educational projects we're running on gaming. And I just want to mention one example. Next slide. This is about gamification and media and information literacy, but we can move on to the next slide, where I want just to say a few things about our most successful student competition on boarding and digital games. This is the 4th year that we're running this competition, and for this year we have actually received 375 games, board games, digital games from preschool, primary, secondary education. It's very impressive because it combines their fantasy, their creativity, and learning on specific subjects in schools such as geography, history, and social studies. Next slide. This is the participations of this competition. It's 344, apologies. And let's go to the next slide. So these are we started with the majority was board games because this is something that primary school were more familiar with. But in the meantime, the engagement on digital games it started to increase, and we have a pretty good number of digital games for this year too, 33. Next slide. These are awards. We offered 75 awards because, well, these are not awards that have to do with some specific prize, but this is because the schools, they had made such a great effort into collaborating together, and sometimes different schools together. So we want to recognize their efforts. So we gave too many awards, I can say, but the schools were pretty happy, even though there was no some financial, prize. Next slide. Just an overview to have a look at the board games that the school sent us. And next slide. Since day one, these are the digital games, and sometimes you had a few students that they were actually guiding their educators, the teachers, on how to play these games, of course. So next slide. Again, some of the awarded schools. And this year we received some hybrid schools. They were mixed, board games and digital games all at the same time. I'm finishing now. Yes, next slide. Yes, the portfolio. Sample for the schools where actually the review committee is right now working very hard to finish with the final selections for the awards. And next slide. So we aim to build a strong ecosystem on gaming, game development with an impact where research drives design and education meets play. And we want to shape the future, to contribute to shaping the future as a national organization, a national actor, but as representing Greece at the same time to international global markets to become, so that gaming can become a strong competitive product that we can promote abroad in alliance with the rest of the markets. And our upper goal is through gamification is to try and achieve this digital intelligence where you have users that they know how to play games, they know how to create games and use them for public good, for a good positive impact in terms to become active citizens.
It's wonderful. Thank you. There are two things I want to call out from that just because I think they're so important right now. One is that even if you don't grow up to be a game developer, this opportunity to create games teaches so many critical literacy skills. You build something, you test it out, If it doesn't work, you figure out where it went wrong, you go back, you fix, test, test. It's a skill that they will use in anything they do, even if they never become a programmer, never become a game developer. The other thing I wanted to call out was the collaboration between generations. That one of the things about Dubbit is we're now hiring 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who are those kids that I talked about who started building games when they were 12. And by the time they're 18, 19, 20, they are of professional caliber building games, but they've never worked for a client. They've never worked to a budget. They've never worked on a timeline. And when we bring them together with game developers who've been with us quite a long time, you get this great synergy. And so that this work of bringing together young people developing and people who have experience who can help mentor them is really critical right now. Thank you so much for that. Let me move on to Carol Colmenares. And Carol, you have been in the media, children's media world for quite a while and really seen the progress all through from very linear, very scheduled, and now you're working on accessibility efforts. Can you tell us a little more about what you're doing?
Yes, so I wish that I could say that the 30 years I have been focused on just children's media, but as a small company, I have to diversify and work on documentaries, podcasts, any kind of work that comes my way. And about 15 years ago, I found myself working for a project that was focused on media accessibility for children who were deaf, blind, and deafblind. And for 15 years, we've been trying to convince the industry that, this is needed, and that even though it's a low incidence disability, it's a high needs population. So I think that maybe we should show the video and then I can talk about it, what went on.
¿El agua está lista? ¿El jabón está listo? ¡A lavar las manos! ¡Sí! Si tu salud quieres cuidar, tus manos tienes que lavar. Los gérmenes eliminar y el agua siempre conservar. Frota arriba, frota abajo, el jabón para lavar. El meñique hasta el pulgar, cada dedo de tus manos. Después de jugar y antes de comer, luego de ir al baño me lavo las manos. Después de jugar y antes de comer, luego de ir al baño me lavo las manos. Frota arriba, frota abajo, el jabón para lavar. Del meñique hasta el pulgar, cada dedo de tus manos. Frota arriba, frota abajo. El jabón para lavar.
Great. So a couple of things going on in this video. Well, first, I hope you got a little bit of the Spanish or the ASL. But a couple of things happened with this particular video. First, we got our incredible partners at Sesame Street, Plaza Sésamo, to collaborate on this, to give us the content. And then the second thing that happens is that we put ASL and accessibility front and center stage, which is different than having the little box in the corner, especially for young kids, preschool kids that are learning the language. Even the parents are learning the language. So the other thing that I want to highlight about this effort, this video, is that it was directed by a Venezuelan American deaf director, and the actors that we hired are deaf. So this is, I was looking at your presentation, David, where you said, nothing for us without us.
Without us. Mm.
And that has been emblematic of, many, many fights, but in the disability community as well, where if you want to really address accessibility, you need to take into consideration what they need. We did a previous effort in which the interpreters were not deaf, the director was not deaf, and when we tested it with the community, they said to us, this you can tell these are not real deaf actors. So it's important because we're not only creating media that will reach children, deaf children, around Latin America everywhere. But we're also creating job opportunities for people who traditionally have been left out of the workforce. So I also want to mention that in terms of gaming, since we're talking about gaming, we have been doing some efforts in making gaming accessible. We have among our advisors a blind gamer, and he consults with developers to make gaming accessible for, and there is a huge community of blind gamers. So something to think about as well. Yeah.
We had a deaf game developer, a profoundly deaf game developer working at Dubbit. And he was so good, he went off and formed his own company. So, but it never stopped him. And part of the reason for that is that young game developers often work in teams. So if you've got a strength in one thing, you find somebody who's got a strength in something you're not as good in, and you collaborate as a team. The other thing, I love the fact that the signing is front and center. I've just come across a remarkable British series called Mix Mups from, I believe, on the BBC. And the series was always built around ability and disability. Two of the characters have disabilities that are incorporated into the story. But they've just developed this amazing way that I think is applicable not just for TV, but for games as well, where when you go into a program, you can choose different ways of having it presented based on your abilities or disabilities. So you can have low background sound if you have ADHD and easy to distract. You can have captions, or you can have sign language. You can have sign language of different types. So this is clearly becoming a really critical issue. We're trying to engage all children in the media for them.
Well, the beauty today is that technology allows for that.
Yeah.
Well, as 15 years ago, we were still fighting with technology, trying to make sure, well, how do we incorporate, description into the video without interrupting? How do we incorporate the ASL without, but now technology affords that you have multiple channels and multiple ways that you can make the captions bigger, smaller. You have all of these multimodal capabilities.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to move to Nikos Tsougnidas. And, it occurs to me that I think Irenia's presentation included a lot of her background in that, and Carol's been with us for a couple of days. But if you could just take a second to introduce yourself as well and what you are. When we had a conversation the other day, I was really struck by what I said was your method of setting images free, of setting imagination free, and trying to build future-proof content that can really expand into all these different worlds.
Thank you, David, and thanks everyone. Thank you, Athena. Thank you, Lena, for inviting us. Thanks to everyone who's been here these days, and our panelists. We can have the next one. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. So quickly about me. I was born in Greece, and I went to university here. Then I spent a couple of years in Japan doing design strategy and augmented reality stuff, amongst other things. And then I worked at BBC for almost 13 years, doing, amongst other things, software and also design there. Next slide. Yeah, that's mainly what I was doing. Yeah, it's not an error. Yeah, this is what I was looking at most of the time. But I guess I'm here to talk about a couple of things. Next slide. Yes. So we're talking about digital worlds, and I guess not to be divisive, but I'm gonna talk about what's the importance of making real connections through stories. And also what is, I would say, a digital vision, the future of metaverse, in my opinion. And more on that later. There's a video about this, but we can have next slide. Yes, this is a video. We don't have to play that one, actually, because there's more, and I'm trying to time myself. So we can go to the next slide. This is an animation. Mainly, I'm working on comics right now, and my first book came out you'll see in the next slide. I think yes, from Edition d'Argot in French in 2023, and in the next slide you'll see the Greek cover, which came out last December by Metechmio and Alexandria, and I guess the comic books, I would like to say a little bit, a few things about comic books, and I think they are a very important medium, never to be overlooked, because I think that most things start as a comic book. A movie starts as a comic book, that's a storyboard. A game starts as a comic book, which also has storyboards and sketches. Even a design for, let's say, this bottle starts, I would say, as a comic book. It's easier to make a comic book than to not make a comic book. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, you make a comic book. These are my notes. And I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah. And the next one. This is just loads of books. Yes, here. Let's stay here for a while. Comic books can have no words. It can be a page with no words. It can be a page with many words. And they start as sketches. This is some of my progress work here on the comic books that I've been working on. Some of them are from the book that's published. But I think the important thing about comic books is that it's the only visual medium where you can say a full story just by yourself. I don't think there's another medium where you can actually say visually say a story and there's only one person involved. And also, you really don't need a computer. You don't need a camera. You can just have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. And there are published comic books like that. I don't have a picture here, but there's a great comic book called All My Friends Are Monsters. And it's basically, I don't know how many pages, like 300, 500 pages. But it's a story that's with a biro, like this pen, on lined paper, like notebook. It's an amazing story. So for me, this is very important about comic books. It gives everyone a platform where they can say a visual story. Now, don't remember what the next slide is, but well, examples. Next one, I think you can see some difference from like work in progress sketches and how it ends up. Well, I'll say a little bit about this. This is one of my favorite pages because it has, it works from left to right and from top to bottom. You can see what happens. The panorama on top has the main character cycling through a platia, a square, on a Greek island. And what happens on top, you can see the panels like frames from a video on the bottom. There's an old lady looking at his fortune in a Greek coffee cup. Yes. Yes. While I talk about stories, we can play that video. Thank you. So, yes, I think there's a power in making worlds, and this is some digital video that I've been working on. So I think there's power in making a world that and narratives, and because in that world, when we make a world, we talk about real life in that imaginative world, and we talk about real problems, anxieties. We can imagine a world where we can talk about our own anxieties that we have in the real world. And the connection there is the emotions that we have, that we share with our characters. That's what I'm talking about when I say real connections. We like to make worlds because they are inhabited by characters who have problems that connect to our real problems, our real anxieties. And in these worlds, we create protagonists, we create heroes, we create antagonists, nemesis, we create everything. We can make that. and we give them a name, and we give them feelings. And the important thing for me, the most important thing is to create a character who has an anchor to reality. And as a creator of a character, the only way to make that is to actually love each and every character in the same way. Your antagonists, your protagonists, like the worst characters in a movie, like Dracula in Bram Stoker, you actually have to love that character when you write the character, in order to make them to make the character attractive and get people to commit to the story. So this is what I talk about when I talk about real connections to stories. And for me, future-proofing a story is about and a narrative is about creating real connections to real emotions. Yes, we have the next slide. Yes, and I'll finish off with this video, which is the second thing that I want to talk about, which is what I think is the metaverse. So apart from comics, because I've been working on code, and I showed you like a page of code, I want to actually show you something that happens with code when you visualize it. So this is a project that I've been working on for a while, since Japan, on my own, which is taking basically a website. You can actually go to this website and try it out yourself, and it takes whichever web page you can give it, and it creates an island out of the structure of the web page, which is a way of visualizing the internet in a spatial way. It gives a web page spatial characteristics. It specifically in this case, to create an island. For example, I'll give you an example. Every link on a web page ends up on the edge of that island, like next to the sea. So you already have, with this metaphor, you already have a way of going from one island to the other. Like your links would be on the edge of this structure. And I think I think the title, when I saw the title of narrative structures in the digital era, like this is a way of getting a structure, this example is a way of getting a structure, which is the web and HTML, and applying a narrative to it. Let's say I want to see this structure as an island. I want to see it as a building. I want to see it as, let's say, a planet. And creating the code, which now can be done with probably AI. I think everyone can probably create that at this point. You don't have to handwrite it, as I did. And actually, through a narrative, see a data structure in a completely different way. Now, that can go as it is into a Roblox world, or like you can use that example to create a metaverse of islands. So I guess I wanted to finish my short talk about saying that I think there's a balance between real connections and stories with characters with real emotions, and using what we have out there on the internet and our code and coding to create structures, not structures that are inspired by narratives. Yeah, that's it. That's me.
When you were talking about worlds, that are inhabited by people and their needs, their wants, their challenges, their emotions, it echoed very much what we were hearing yesterday from Pavel about short storytelling. So even though they are very different worlds, this is the connection of why we go into these worlds and why we identify with people. And then at the same time, it seemed like you were talking about worlds that are there for us to go in and explore our own emotions. And it's there to create a setting where we can react as we would, as opposed to needing to inhabit another person or needing to empathize with another person. It's creating a structure where we can explore for ourselves.
Yes, if you allow me like comment on that, I think every story is about like reality. Like the best science fiction is about today. Like science fiction is not about the future. It's a way of bringing some science, some fantastical ideas today to talk about today's problems and our emotions. Yeah. So the same way, I think the stories are where we communicate with other people. It's not about us. It's not about just creating something for ourselves. And I think the same thing is the same with games. We use games to communicate with other people. I mean, this is why Roblox is, I think, and I think that your company does is so successful. It's not like a place just for ourselves.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And I need you to be prepared, because after we hear from Vasilis, I have a question in mind based on what you were talking about for everyone that I think is going to be a challenge about AI. Vasilis Mitropoulos, I'm really intrigued to hear what you have to say. You're a longtime gamer, and tell us a little about yourself to start with, but also I'm interested in how you see this gaming world today and how it's changed over the course of your gaming life.
Yes, thank you, David. I have been lucky enough to be invited here as an outside viewer, let's say, because my part in this is only as a consumer from David's eyes, or just a gamer from the outside perspective. And I would like to expand upon the thing that you talked about on the beginning, as far as the diversity of gaming is concerned. Because I'm old enough now to remember, blowing dust of cartridges to start the game. And there was a time when games were being developed from big companies and aimed directly at young adults. But right now, Roblox is an excellent example of that, games are being developed by basically anyone, and new voices are heard. And this is a great advantage as far as narrative structures are being concerned, as far as hearing stories from minorities, from getting the perspective of people that it was hard to get the perspective before. And this also ties in with the matter of engagement. Games right now, games before were more about a solitary experience. The most cooperative experience you could have playing a game is maybe inviting a friend over and playing together on the couch with you. But now, as you give an example with Roblox, people connect through games not only virtually, but also outside of the internet. I had the chance of being at Athens Comic Dome, which Nikos also was there, but for presenting his works. I was just there as a spectator. But it was fun seeing people cosplaying as characters from their favorite games and meeting other people with similar interests to them. So you can see how people connect through games, and this is not only a solitary experience anymore. People watch, people connect, and people view games as a whole different experience right now and connect on a deeper level. It's not just solitary.
One of the things that I've noticed that I've given talks about is representation in games. And when you talk about the diversity in it and going to the Comic-Cons and seeing people dressed as their favorite characters, gaming can be a very safe space for people to express things that they may not be able to in the real world, to dress in a way that they may not be allowed to dress or wouldn't be culturally accepted. When you go into, or you and your friends go into games, do you look for as it diversifies, do you look for opportunities to try something new, to experience somebody else's life, to to diversify your own experiences, or do you tend to focus in more on there's a certain thing I like, so I'm going to keep doing that?
Speaking from my experience, I very much try to do that, but there are also people focused on, I like what I like, stick to that. But now, because there is so much diversity, games, there are a specific genre of games, and it's growing rapidly, that it's starting to look more and more like movies. And I am I'm a big fan of cinema. And there are many games where it's like playing a movie, but from a first-person perspective. There are some media companies try to do that, like Netflix on a show called Black Mirror tried to do that. So as a viewer, you were designing what the main character would do. But that didn't go very well. In my experience, games can do it better. So, and there is a stigma right now where the main population doesn't view games as high quality as TV shows or movies. And I think this needs to change, and lucky enough, it's starting changing.
I was thinking about that across what you were saying, but also what Irene was saying before, that one of the challenges with getting games engaged in schools and such is that a lot of parents think, my kid plays plenty of games as it is, they don't need to do that in school. And yet, one of the things we found in our research during the pandemic was that parents who were privileged to be home with their kids and have enough time to pay attention to what they were doing. So it is a matter of privilege that a lot of parents either still had to go to work during the pandemic or didn't have time to pay attention. But those who had time to pay attention to their kids went from, you've been playing Minecraft for 3 hours, put it down, to, wait a minute, you built that? How did you know how to build that? Tell me, show me what you're doing. Thank you for that. That was great. I said I had what I thought was a challenging question. I'm going to pose one question. We started a little bit late, so I'm going to pose one, and then let's see if we have a question or two from the audience. You talked about being able to create a comic book by yourself. I can't draw anything. I was traumatized by school art classes because they always told me how bad I was. Is AI going to let me make a comic book, or is it going to ruin comic book making because I can make a comic book? And I expand that to creation overall, so please, any of you jump in and answer.
Wow, that's the $67,000 question, right? Okay, I think both.
Okay.
I think both. But I think there's a nuance there. Like, first of all, I think that you can create a comic book, David. Some of the best comic books are not the best comic books because of their, how great the anatomy is, or how great. I think Maus, Spiegelman's book is. I wouldn't say that the art is what you look at that story. It's the story itself. It's the emotion that comes through that.
And is that what's missing in AI? Is the heartfelt story?
Yeah, but I mean, you could just get the prompts right, I guess, to get the images that you want. Eventually, that will happen, but so you will get that tool. You will get that tool to create images that are what you want in the end. But a comic book is two things. It's the images and the words and the story. They work together. And if you make it yourself, however bad the art is, your emotions will show up in what you do and in the art itself. And for most people, that's not going to make a difference, because a lot of people want content. They don't want art. They don't want something that the person who made it was going through something. I think this is, for me, this is the important question about AI. if you care about the emotions of the creator, then AI is not for you because the
removes that.
creator has no emotions there. If you just want to consume something, then AI is great for you. Go for it. Use it. Yeah, and this is a very, very hard line, and both are going to be there. Both in a few years.
Irene, is AI a part of the curriculum that you're developing for the games aspect?
Well, actually, Greek educators are quite intimidated with AI right now. I mean, and because they feel that they know less than their students. But in terms of content creation, like you said, well, you cannot escape AI. And the younger generation, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they are the modern day screenagers. They're in front of a screen since day one. They are born, you know, you have the parents taking photos of them all the time. So we need to be innovative, and we need to think that you can use AI as a facilitator in order towards content creation. We can talk about AI in school, showcasing some creative examples, some tools, practical tools that you can use in order to make your own content. And you can get inspired by AI, but not getting used to copy-paste everything from AI. So this is something that has to start from an early preschool age, in primary preschool education, how to take good advantage of the creative economy today. And this reminds me of a book I had read about How to Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. So it was saying, you know, you don't steal an artist, you get inspired. So you can get inspired about previous artworks, about AI content generation, in order to create your own content, in order to feel unique. And we need to cultivate these skills very early on in a young generation, young users, because you cannot avoid it. So we have to learn how to go along with it.
And to understand that when you create something inspired by an artist, it probably was literally inspired by that artist because they took that and fed it into the AI. And have they credited them? Have they paid them? Lots of big issues. Questions from the audience? Anybody? We have just a couple of minutes. We've told you everything there is to know.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, please.
Yes. I do think there is a place for AI. I am working now on a pilot with my sister company, Dicapta, under the leadership of Dr. Maria Victoria Diaz. And what we're doing is called Integra. It's in its pilot stage. And what we're doing is we're providing a questionnaire for a recent immigrant or a child that has a disability, and you get all these questions, you know, what do you have, what disability do you have, or who are you, age, what grade you're going in, where your family comes from. So all of this customization. And based on the answers, you build a profile of the character or the student, and through AI, we're producing short videos that help the teachers and help the parents and help the student. So we have AI generated videos that say, here's a way for you to make friends in their native language, whatever it is. So it could be Spanish, or it could be Bengali, or it could be wherever the kid is coming from. So the only reason I mention this is because AI is providing an opportunity for something very personal that would be impossible to fund otherwise. So
very good.
Just wanted to throw that in there.
We have a question.
Something more general.
They're going to bring you a microphone so that the people on the streaming. Oh.
I think in your presentation you had this learnification of gaming phrase, so which is kind of subvert, contrasting what we usually think, gamification of learning, and now it's. But do you actually think that there's much to that? Because usually when we put too much content on games, the game is ruined. So when I was younger, we were talking about edutainment and serious games and things like that. But is there actually much to that? After 20 years of gaming, let's say globally, we have been, maybe games were from the 70s, but the recent generation of I think that good scripts, good films work because there's a good narrative, as we were saying yesterday, and as like younger people share today. So I have the feeling that when we want to people forcibly to learn a lot from a game, it wouldn't work. So that why did you include that phrase in your presentation? I want to know. I want to understand why you mentioned that, because you didn't develop on it.
The learnification of gaming phrase. That's actually turning it around. We know about gamification of learning. We know about putting game constructs into curriculum and that, and it can be done well, it can be done very badly. Learnification of gaming is something that I came up with to explain that the intrinsic motivation of young people to create in games is teaching them valuable skills about storytelling, about the kind of iterative learning that I was talking about before, which is how we end up with those 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are able to build games at a professional level. On the broader point, I'm not a gamer. I should explain that, and so I should turn it over to those who build and study games. But it feels to me that games create a space for you to explore. They tend to be less good at slamming home information and more and better at creating an environment where you want to pursue the information. Think about virtual reality and being able to immerse yourself in a world completely different from yours. I've always loved the example of, from some of the early Google educational VR, the idea that the teacher sets up the context, and then you go into, let's say, ancient Greece, and you're exploring and your classmates are exploring, and you're all seeing something different because you're all looking at in a 360 world. And when you come out, you're responsible for answering certain questions. And my answer may be a little different from your answer because we explored different things in that world. That's an example of a game creating space for me to learn on my own and to gather information. Similarly, what we were talking about before with creating virtual worlds, that some of them are designed to lead you in a specific place, and many of them are designed to let you explore. We built a game for a company called, or an organization called Experience Camps, that is helping kids deal with grief. And in this case, it wasn't trying to to drive home any certain points about how you should grieve, because everyone does it differently. It was about allowing young people to bring their friends into an exploration space and where there were sort of cues to set off conversations and allow them in that virtual world to talk about how to be a good friend to someone who's grieving. So again, it's not curriculum per se, although there are, Games for Change is very good at curriculum games, but it's much more about creating an environment for exploration. Do we need the, other reactions? Oh.
But I do think that there is a lot of unintentional learning when you're playing games. And I just have a cute anecdote of my child when he was 10 and he was playing Assassin's Creed. I don't know if you remember that game, but we were visiting Rome, we were visiting the Colosseum, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh, we need to go to the gallows." What? Where did you even learn that word? And all of a sudden he knows all about the Colosseum because he's been playing this Assassin's Creed game. And sure enough, he knew a lot about medieval Rome that I didn't know about.
They're known to be among the best at creating historically realistic spaces.
Yeah, it couldn't be taught in a classroom.
Actually, I wanted to point out to the point that you mentioned, the emotional intelligence. And it's important because all kinds of narrative, be it digital storytelling, film narratives, games narrative, or comic narrative, I mean, they can stand up against AI challenges if they have a clear vision of digital emotional intelligence. So not just learn about stuff that you design or project on screen or on paper, but how to deal with your own emotions, how to learn how to express yourself and build a secure shield of emotional intelligence against the intruder, be it AI or something else. So that's a common line in all forms of narratives, I think.
Do we have a minute? I just want to comment on something. Yes, first of all, I think for me, even when I was very young, and I was a gamer when I was very young, I think I mean I completely agree. Games are a way of they in some ways they work the same way that dreams work. They are a place to channel anxiety from the day or your anxieties and like experience it in a safe place. So a game is a safe place where you can experience anxieties.
I will put a question mark in
Yeah.
the safe space.
Well, yeah, oh yes, yes. Hopefully. Where you can, without actually having the risk in the real world to experience that. And I'm not talking about like war games in this way. Like I'm talking about more serious games. And on learning from games, I mean, my experience on the previous question is like I basically learned English from games. Like for I don't know, in 1987, no one was like we were playing games. We had to play games in English. So this is just it's a great way of being introduced into a language. It was a game for me to learn a new language. It was a game.
And intrinsically motivated because you wanted to play the game and you needed the
Absolutely, adventure games. You had to type things.
Excellent. I think we have hit our time. We have another wonderful panel coming, and I don't want to take away from them. Thank you so much to our panel. Thank you for coming. Stand by.
Fests, I would like to invite the artistic director and head of production of Michael Kakoyannis Foundation, who is very hospitable for this event, to say a few words. Please welcome Mrs. Alexandra Georgopoulou.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of the Michael Kakoyannis Foundation, I welcome you to the final day of the webinars of the International Program on Cinema and Audiovisual Media, Fest of Fests. Over these 4 days, we have had the opportunity to hear the perspectives of leading professionals and academics in the field of audiovisual education, particularly on issues that address contemporary concerns regarding the approach and understanding of Generation A, the most connected generation in the history of mankind. We warmly thank all the distinguished speakers who contributed their expertise and experience to these meetings and in turn provided answers and raised questions on modern issues. We also extend our heartfelt thanks to all of you who joined these meetings in person, as well as the large audience following via Zoom and live streaming. We hope that the Fest of Fests initiative, which over all these years has become an institution, will continue with the same dynamic and creative spirit. Finally, we express our warm thanks to the Attica region, which embraced and supported the program by incorporating it to the regional program Attica within the framework of NSRF 2021-2027, as well as to the Ministry of Culture for its enduring support. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of these meetings. And here's the second panel.
So we're going to the final panel, which is the present and the future of film education, which is going to kind of wrap up whatever we have discussed all those 4 days. And before we end, we will have the conclusions presented by David Kleeman. And without any further delay, I would like to invite here the panelists, the distinguished panelists, Katerina Iotopoulou, Maria Leonida, Ηλίας Στασόπουλος, Βασίλης Καραμιτσάνης and Stathis Kalogeropoulos. I hope you're not very squeezed. Okay. But are we in the frame for the live streaming? I guess we are. Okay. So the present and future of film education. We've been talking about film education all those days via different media. And I would like the panelists of today to present themselves briefly and elaborate on what they're doing and how they see the present and the future of film education. And before we start, let me briefly present our distinguished panelists. Mrs. Katerina Iotopoulou. Dr. Katerina Iotopoulou is a professor at the Film and the Digital Arts and Cinema Department of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, specializing in film education. Mr. Stathis Kalogeropoulos is the Athens Film Officer. Vasilis Karamitsanis is the president of Anima Syros Film Festival, been held since 2008. And lately he was appointed the General Secretary of CIFEJ, which is now in ECOMED. And before that, he was the president of CIFEJ. Maria Leonida, a PhD candidate in the same department, is the founder of Karpos, a film education, let's say, institution based in Athens. And Ilias Stasopoulos, Dr. Ilias Stasopoulos, if I'm not mistaken, is the moderator of a learning platform in the Hellenic Film and Media Center, Creative Greece. And he's the moderator of the platform called Cinedu. So we will start with Katerina Iotopoulou. And I would first like to ask her, how do you, your specialization is film education. How do you implement this know-how, this knowledge into university students?
Yes, I have an answer for that. And I have written a small, a tiny text because I'm a teacher and that I've been a teacher for 1,000 years and I always be a teacher. So I'm going to talk about what happens in our department, and I think that reflects the challenges of film education generally. We have included 2 courses about film in education since last year, and we face a challenge. Our university students are studying film, the art of moving image. Our job is to educate them how they can teach film in primary and secondary schools, or incorporate cinema in any kind of educational programs, or furthermore, and hopefully, how they can train school teachers to do so. And we try to get them familiarized with the various theoretical and practical aspects of film education. What is the challenge then? Most of similar courses target to school teachers who are professional educators, but our students are not teachers, are artists. They do not have a clue about educational practices, pedagogical principles, etc. They do not have even a clue how film could find a place in school curriculum because they did not have any similar experience when they were school students themselves. So our challenge is creating a university course that includes both pedagogical content and content about film education and its aspects. We are content creators. I thought it would be that I became an academic, but I'm actually a content creator. This tug of war is not a typical dilemma. It's an essential issue. Why is that? The answer has to do with the core of film education. Dealing with cinema in school classroom, that means viewing, discussing and making films, and interacting with the creative qualities of art of cinema. School students recognize a new dimension of the world and themselves. In that sense, film education may change the one-dimensional and linear way of thinking, the way of thinking that school mostly promotes. And finally, they can develop critical thinking, hopefully. So we believe that film education has mostly pedagogical benefits. That is why our core syllabus includes lectures about critical literacy, critical pedagogy, cultural studies, and of course the framework of film education. Specifically, students prepare lesson plans, they attend and watch real classrooms, they apply teaching practices about film in real situations. For example, in a primary school, in a high school, a school cinema club, a second chance school, an art school, various kinds of workshops. The students were very impressed about that experience, and so did I. I will only share one example and I'll finish. One of the students who comes from an upper middle class suburb, from the northern suburbs of Athens, teamed up with a school in a working class area. He was very stunned and overwhelmed about discovering a world that he had a blurry idea about it. So, if education could improve our university students' experience about society, and at the same time, if film education could help to increase the cultural capital of underprivileged school students, if these 2 things happen, I would be a very happy woman, a very happy teacher, and a very happy citizen. I think that kind of collaboration is the future of film education. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I jump into the next question, I was impressed that you said about, you mentioned the challenges, and but with your epilogue, you kind of answered my questions. I was going to ask, how do your students respond to the challenges? But you answered that. But I also wanted to ask you, taking into account those challenges, do you create new challenges as you progress in your film education subject?
Of course. Well,
Microphone, please.
yes, of course. We do not invent the wheel. There are a lot of experience, mostly in Europe and, of course, United States. But we try to make our own path and include what this newest generation has to bring in that collaboration, because it's a new generation that have a very different view of what film is, very different of what we thought film and cinema was. So we have, and we try to include all these new experience and views in our curriculum and hopefully in creating new theory on that field.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And I would like to jump to Vasilis Karamitsanis, because you said we mix the order, okay? Because you mentioned professional education, and I know that Anima Syros has a very strong program of film education, especially targeted into animation. And this, of course, bridges the previous discussion with Nikos Tsouknidas as illustrator, animator, and how we can use this, because animation is original work. I mean, you create characters, you create stories, you create narratives. So would you like to share a little bit about what you're doing in Anima Syros, and also what you intend to do at CIFEJ, which is now in Athens.
PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I know.
Screen.
Can we please start the PowerPoint presentation? Thank you.
I've been requested to talk briefly about a view into the present and the future of middle literacy, and thanks to the organizers, to Athinari Kaki, to Xenia Kaldara, the entire team of the Michael Kakogiannis Foundation, and of course, stellar Lena, who's doing all her best, you know, in order for this project to be long-lasting for 3 or over more than
5 years.
5 years, okay. So I wish another 5 years or 15 years. So talking a little bit briefly, next slide, please. Briefly about Anima Syros is an international festival and market named Agora, after the ancient Greek Agora, dedicated to the art of animation, organized since 2008 in the center of the Cyclades Island complex on the island of Syros, mostly focused on its capital town, which is Hermopolis. Is the largest animation event over the years, of course, in the Mediterranean Sea, and one of the most important and significant events of its kind worldwide, with a very strong focus on the young audience. Main features of a festival, of course, are screenings, competition sections for professionals, for students, TV and commission films, feature films, not only shorts, kids films, films made for kids or by kids, Anima Pride, the only official LGBTQ equal competition of thematic related to gender issues in the field of animation, and as well as information sections like thematic tributes, national tributes. This year is going to be Croatia, the big school of Zagreb animation, and a VR lounge, already hosted since 2023. Of course, I'm going to talk extensively about the education department, which is Anima Syros, one of the strong points with a large array of media literacy initiatives. Then we have the Agora, as we said. This is our most recent initiative since 10 years, but it has evolved into the only marketplace for animation in the Mediterranean region, and one of the most dynamic pillars of the festival's development, hosting networking events and activities for Greek and European professionals, lectures, seminars, masterclasses, pitching sessions, along with the largest animation festival in the world, which is Annecy in France, speed dating and B2B meetings, as well as a small production house for animation and documentaries. About Anima Syros 2025 briefly is running from Monday 22nd through Sunday 28th September is dedicated to space. Last year it was Africa. This year is the time for an animated cosmos to be dealt with throughout the actions of the festival. There is focus country to Croatia, a first tribute on the occasion of the 80 years of the Greek animation to the great Greek masters. It's the first time that the very compound Greek masters of animation tribute is being produced, and we'll be happy to host some of the people of the early masters of this art on the island of Syros, a tribute to stellar American independent animator Bill Plympton and other things. We're going to go on the pitching forum, which is co-organized with MIFA, which is the Annecy International Animation Festival Market, with the support of the French Institute of France, French Institute of Paris, as well as the Ministry of Europe and External Affairs of the French Republic. And you can see a little bit about the visual arts. Every year we appoint a special artist to design our visuals based on our thematic selection. This year is space. So a space design is designed by a Greek and American artist based in Chania, Crete, named Alexandra Manousakis. You see that the festival is also about social events. It's not just screenings or marketplace or educational initiatives. So you see opening ceremony, pre-festival event, open air events, closing award ceremony. I just would like to highlight the upper left one where the President, Her Excellency, the President of Republic, Katerina Sakellaropoulou, has opened for the first time, paying great tribute to Hellenic animation development this year. Now going a little bit more precisely to the animation initiatives, it's mostly informal animation. So we're focusing on children of first or second school age, young professionals, people with disabilities, ranging from minors to adult people with disabilities, mobility disabilities and mental disabilities, senior citizens, along with the daycare centers of municipalities, namely called KAPI in the Greek terminology, focusing not only on Syros but throughout the year. And also other vulnerable social groups, prisoners, especially in young prisoners camps like the one in Avlon in Northern Attica, as well as persons in rehabilitation against drugs addiction and other addictions, mainly working with KETHEA, which is like close communities based in Rafina, KETHEA Parembasi, that we do a yearly workshop as well as other joint actions. And then we have a large array of educational workshops throughout the year in Greece, Cyprus, and elsewhere in the world, mainly addressing kids, normally with collaboration and support of local, public, or private institutions. You see some, you see some of the workshops. When we do a workshop, it also has to be publicized, and there's also a deliverable, which means a 60-second video produced by the kids, of course, under the supervision and with the editing support of an educator. And you can see that we're ranging from a very sophisticated Syros-based workshop on cultural animation for adults to training municipal public servants on animating. How do we animate disability? How do we communicate disabled citizens who come to the municipality, to the town hall, in order to be friendly for them? A workshop about Missolonghi, which is one of the historical places of Greece, along with the local organization. Resilience for people from KETHEA Parembasi in rehabilitation against drugs, plus other workshops with museums and other institutions. So other media literacy initiatives include over 200 educational videos, which is essentially the deliverables of our workshops over all these years of over 18 years of activity, which are available as working material and as educational material, informal proof of animation education, available online at Vimeo, at the page of Anima Syros, and it's been used very extensively in schools around Greece, and not only. Informal educational training manual, which was materialized along with the ECOME. ECOME used to be one of the two organizations fused to the Unified Creative Greece organization nowadays. So we had the chance to create an informal education training manual in Greek, which is also available online, and which is mapping and a little bit recapitulating the entire activity we've been doing for 18 years in the field of informal education for diverse social groups in the field of animation. We do have some strategic collaborations with the University of Aegean, which is our prime academic supporter, not without a reason, because there is a school of design based on the University of the Aegean on the island of Syros. University of Piraeus is one of our permanent, especially the Department of Informatics, is one of our permanent supporters and collaborators, as well as DERI, the American College of Greece, and ACTO, Art and Design College based in Athens, both based in Athens, actually. And also we do participate in a number of co-funded by the European Union, the European Commission, educational projects with diverse European partners from around the Union, mainly focusing on special or targeted animation education, which means the first one is media literacy for living together, and this was media animation education, informal animation education, extracurricular for living together well, so enhancing social cohesion. And the second, which was concluded last year, it was called I AM, and it was special education curricula for schools between Hungary, Cyprus, Poland, and Greece, which was an important initiative supported by Erasmus Plus program. And it was awarded by the Union as one of the best practices of that year in the Erasmus Plus sphere. Now we do lots of things for kids and young people. Essentially, animation is stemming sometimes from the young audience and is targeted to the young audience. So one of the most important and our biggest pride is to be an essential part of CFEG. CFEG, for those who don't know, is the oldest global association of youth media professionals, and has recently, and with lots of pride, and really like it's a structural change, and we have to thank the Ministry of Culture and the Greek government for this thing, and especially all the people in the Hellenic Film and Audiovisual Center Creative Greece for hosting the headquarters of CFEG, the International Center of Films for Kids and Young People. And they have a special structure within the Creative Greece organization, which is Creative Hub GR, addressing educational matters as well. We do animation screenings and educational programs around Syros for more than 1,000 school students every year, not only in the capital, which is Hermopolis, but throughout the island throughout the 7 days of the duration of the festival. And we do have a year-long operation, as we said, with workshops and screenings for children and young people in Greece, Cyprus, and beyond. You see some pictures here. Just a brief, not so important, but important in a way, thing is our featured mascot. Since 18 years, we do have Anima Spiros, which is a festival's mascot since 2008, as you see, by comic artist and animator Petros Christoulias. It's a creative interpretation of the standing Cycladic female. It may sound like a male name. This was a name given by the kids of Syros, but in essence is a female figurine, Syros Keros typology, as the archaeologists may say, wearing signature cineast glasses of Woody Allen. So it's a bridge of both old Cycladic Greek and international new, like Woody Allen is. And over the years, of course, Anima Spiros has become kids' best festival buddy. You may see there is even a public sculpture on the left-hand side created by the Athens School of Fine Arts on the occasion of the 10 years of our festival. Last but not least, we are proud to be part of FAN, Festivals Animation Network, which is giving strong emphasis of animation education. So it's a Southern Animation Festivals initiative. So for the first time, or not for the first time, but essentially it's not something common that we Mediterranean countries of the Union unite. In this case, this is the case. So a Cypriot festival, the biggest Cypriot festival, the biggest Spanish festival, the biggest Greek festival, which is Anima Syros, the biggest Italian festival, and one of the oldest and biggest European festivals, which is Cinanima from Portugal, have joined forces with the support of the Creative Europe Media Program. And we built a network which is going to last at least 2.5 years and is giving strong emphasis on European work screenings, on audiovisual education activities like workshop, but also on the development of original exemplary educational material, which can be attributed also to curricular kind of audiences, not just informal. an international symposium that we will invite you all, I hope, on the island of Syros next year to happen, as well as a Green Bible for sustainability, both social and environmental sustainability of festivals organizing at the moment, which is very important. It's one of the very hot points of European festivals at the moment. You address it very well, Lena. And I would like to thank you for all this. And sorry if I said too much, you know.
No, because you, at the same time, it is available online, and I had pointed out some questions that I was going to address you, but before I asked the questions, you already answered how you're funded, if children beyond the island of Syros have access to your educational programs, but you already answered that. So I would like to go to the next speaker, Maria Leonida. Maria Leonida, for over 20 years, is into film education with Karpos, a structure in Athens. And she's going to present her work now.
Well, there is a presentation, but I don't want to bother with too much data, but I think I'd rather, since the question is the present and the future of film education, I think I need to talk a little about I think it's an approach. Film education itself is an approach, and from my experience, I need to say that when I started my first workshop, I asked for a sponsorship from Kodak to give me 8 one-time cameras, how to call them? No. We were buying them and then we're sending them to be developed. One-use, 24 frames camera. So that was my very first workshop with refugee kids in Greece in 2002. And then I introduced tablets in 2015 and smartphones, which at that time was quite early. And I'm now building the first AR workshop for teenagers for September. So I can say that I've gone through the whole thing, and as a filmmaker, starting editing with film, and now just editing on a phone with CapCut or anything, I think it's very useful to have an overview of technology and be able to use all kinds of technology in film and media education. I am a fan of film and media education. I don't believe in the contrast and contradiction of those two, because often in Europe and in consortia or in symposia or in conferences, we fight about those two terms. I think it's a unique, it's a 360 world dealing with images and sounds, and it's about how you're going to use them. So I once was invited in Warsaw to speak about how I continued doing film education during the crisis. So for the Belgian organizer, it was very important. How did Greece manage to keep doing media literacy and film education? So I made a presentation about how can you do film education with no electricity? Because this is the very edge. Are we able to teach about the frame without electricity, without a projector, without a camera, without, of course, we didn't have so many smartphones at that time. I think it's possible, and I do some tricks and things with pieces of paper. So this experience, for me, is what is infusing Karpos as a whole. So it's more about the methodology. It's more about an approach than, and all the European projects or local projects are just representing and materializing this approach. This is why I have no fear when a museum invites me to create a media education project on an exhibition, an arts exhibition. And I also want to say that my approach connects all kinds of ages. It's transgenerational and transversal. I think that all film education, media education addresses everybody from 4 years old, even 3 or even 2 sometimes with some adjustment, to 92. So Athina, it's okay for you as well, no problem. And this in practice, the challenge I always put myself is, can I do the same workshop to a teenager, to a 7-year-old student, and to a teacher? And it proves it's possible, and this is the true film education, in my opinion. So I'll just go through the slides. Once I explained, please just, there's all sorts of chances and projects, European or about diversity, different ages, different occasions, and I give a lot of importance to any chance we have to, a bit slower, So tutorials, curricula, and toolboxes or manuals, if you want to go further a little bit. These are different kind of manuals from European projects that are available online, and each one of them involves real-time learning practices, learning lesson plans, I would call them. So all of this, if you please go on, are different sort of possibilities that handbooks were produced, were written without AI at that time. And we have collaborated with theater educators, with the scientists for STEAM projects, filmmakers, different sorts of professions connect to media literacy. This is what I experience. So the future of media education and film education is connecting the world because images are around. People from WWF, I mean environmental people, want to use images. Psychologists come to us, they want to use the images. Older people, carers, caregivers want to use. So addiction is often treated with artistic practices. We all know that. So this is, for me, the true future. It's film education and media education is everywhere, could be everywhere. And so just to finish with the curricula, online, one of the first online curricula with some Polish colleagues in 2018, that was the very first time you could go online and get some materials. It was a big framework, and then we were full with toolboxes. Yes, next one. Another media education. And of course, the big consortium for the framework for film education, where 20 countries gathered to produce this, how to say, this survey and manuals as well. This is a site, is available online. How to use film education if you're a coordinator, a user's guide. BFI and Danish Film Institute were the coordinators. It's very, very good, very well done. And I think we're just finishing with that. Yeah, these are the Greek curricula. This is interesting because this is assigned from the Ministry of Education. It's uploaded, it's never been really used. This is something to address to the public authorities, please. We could come and discuss. It's a very useful, and actually all the workshops I'm doing are part of this. So they're all pilot tested and they really work. And I'm very glad my colleague and co-founder of Karpos, who's not with us anymore, Menis Odoridis, he was my teacher and I owe him so much about the idea of methodology. This is all what he taught me, and I think I'm almost finished. Yeah, these are some awards. I'm very happy that we had many of our projects were awarded in European competitions, and I think this shows that it is possible that people understand local contexts and local methodologies. I have the feeling that similar groups or people like Karpos, who are bigger than us, we have very similar thinking with other countries. So it means that the people enjoy learning about media wherever they are. And I can close up with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I have a question to ask. Vasilis said he has some sponsors and he presented his collaborations and everything. And Maria, you presented a wide variety of activities here in Greece, but also in Europe and worldwide. And I was wondering, how do you manage to fund all those activities?
That's a very good question.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I'm not as good in public relations as Vasilis is. So.
Maybe you should hire him.
Okay. Well, I think hard work is always a key to some things, and Europe recognizes hard work. I must say that from 2015, where the European project started, we were wanted for what we do, and it's always a struggle. It's not easy. It's not so easy. Often you do things like in a volunteer style or volunteer basis. We struggle to get some funding here and there. It's not nothing is stable.
Eventually, this whole effort, does it pay off? your effort.
Today's my
I mean,
birthday, so I have to.
I know. Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Maria.
I need to buy everybody a drink, so I don't.
Okay.
Let's talk about money now. So be my guest. I'd love that. Well, it's a good question for a birthday day. It's worth because you feel I'm a richer person. This is one thing. I also think one reason I shared my time from get a little bit away from documentary making and offering a lot of time to education is because I felt that the cycle of production of a film, a feature film, is very big. While in education, your communication with people is direct and you see the impact on people the same day, the next day, the other day. And actually, to answer your question, financially, it might not be really worth in a big, capital letters, but I'm convinced that it's worth, so the education part is really worth, because what I'm doing now related to my PhD is I'm trying to see the impact of film education, because this is a big question mark all over Europe and the States, because artists cannot easily prove that they have an impact when they work with groups. The groups are having a great time, the result might be a great film, but is there something there? So what I'm doing now, I'm visiting teenage groups 2 weeks after my workshop, a month after my workshop, and I'm making interviews and discussions. So I see what have they really learned, because this is what the curriculum is always worried about, and quantitative data, education wants quantitative data, unfortunately. So this is, I'm trying to find how film education could have even quantitative and qualitative data. And I can assure you that it's film education, if it's well done, it remains.
I'm sure it does. And maybe Ilias Tasopoulos, who's the moderator of the platform Cinedu, and he holds a PhD, I don't know in what, but maybe you can present yourself.
International relations.
International relations. But okay, in your case, you're lucky enough because of what I know, this Cinedu project was funded by NSRF program, the regional funding in Europe, and we're lucky enough to have it in Greece. So would you like to share it with us?
Yes, actually, it's impressive that everybody in Greece in the film sector or in schools seems to know about Cinedu, and this is very inspiring for us. But since Fest of Fest enjoys a large international audience, in a nutshell, Cinedu is a nationwide platform with a curated selection of fiction films, animation, and documentaries from all over the world. Next slide. So the next slide. The use of film in education is already widespread practice across Europe with digital platforms established in many countries. But although the formal integration of cinema into the Greek educational system is long overdue, as Maria mentioned, Cinedu is pioneer in one specific way. Its film is directly linked to the national curriculum. So it comes with tailor-made educational material. So this allows its immediate use in the classroom and provides a valuable teaching tool for educators. So for every film of Cinedu, there's educational support material, lesson plans, background information, discussion suggestions, exercises, so that teachers can confidently use cinema as a learning tool. So they do. Educators use Cinedu across the country, from urban centers to remote villages. They use Cinedu to bring film into their teaching practice. So the impact of this nationwide project connecting cinema and education is already evident from the results of the first years of its operation. Over 2,000 schools across the country have gained access to the platform films and educational resources. In just 2 years of full operation, more than 7,000 teachers from a wide range of disciplines have registered and are using the platform in their teaching. You can see here how the response from schools has been remarkable, with more and more teachers embracing this tool to address a variety of topics in a dynamic, engaging way. You can see how interest is particularly high in areas where traditional cinema infrastructure is lacking. In fact, a large percentage of the schools using Cinedu are located in remote or hard-to-reach regions. Over 10% of registered schools are based on the Aegean Islands, with similar figures in Eastern Macedonia and Thrace. So, in line with the EU priorities, Cinedu addresses a real structural challenge, the uneven distribution of audiovisual infrastructure. So in many parts of Greece, particularly rural or island communities, students grow up without a cinema nearby, no movie theaters, no access to curated film experience. This is where Cinedu steps in by offering free access to its film catalog and educational materials. It helps bridge this divide. It brings cinema directly into schools. And symbolically, one of the first school screenings through Cinedu took place on an island without a cinema in Folegandro. And what we're seeing is very powerful. This experience fostered critical thinking, film literacy, among others. So we can see here how pupils by watching a film, Migrants, by Hugo Kangi, on the Cinedu platform, contacted the director to organize and conduct an interview with him for their school magazine, an initiative that reflects just how deeply film can motivate students to explore, question, and create. So we have also launched a national training initiative for educators on how to effectively use Cinedu in their teaching. These training sessions have been delivered by specialized instructors and follow a the trainers model in collaboration with regional directorates of primary and secondary education across the country, ensuring that support reaches schools in all areas, urban, rural, and remote alike. So since its launch, Cinedu has reached thousands of students and educators and continues to grow. It has become the largest recent public investment in Greece, co-financed by ESPA, by Greece and European Union under the European Social Fund. So it's worth noting that Cinedu is now part of COMED, Creative Greece, which plays a key role in developing audiovisual and film literacy through initiatives like audiovisual education workshop, student film competitions, as Irina Andrinopoulou mentioned, provision of accessible material for students with disabilities, school-oriented handbooks, and many other activities. COMED works to bolster media education, and we're very happy to be part of COMED Creative Greece.
Thank you so much, and I think this presentation of Cinedu completes yesterday's presentation by Isabelle Miguillon, sitting over there, who presented a program which is trans-European, held in 6 European countries and called Nextas. Our country, Greece, is part of this program through the Thessaloniki Film Festival. The general director of the Thessaloniki Film Festival was here yesterday with Irini Delidaki, who runs the program, and they explained how this program, Nextas, is implemented into 6 European countries, but it is only documentaries. And I was wondering, is Cinedu including both documentaries and fiction films, fiction and non-fiction, or just fiction films?
Yes, we have also included documentaries, but I think our greatest challenge was to include fiction films so that students have the opportunity to get in touch with cinema. And this is why we collaborated with people from the film sector, from festivals, from institutions that know how to reach the audience. We have cooperated with Olympia Film Festival, or the Athens International Film Festival for Children and Youth. So it was important for us to include fiction films that are have participated in festivals, can guide the students into their first steps into cinema. And what would be our next challenge is to bring students into a cinema, to make it easy for a teacher to organize a visit to cinema, so that students have the opportunity to watch a film with their friends, discuss, and this is what we actually did in Trikala. The classroom became the cinema. The teachers organized their lessons so that they start early in the morning, and their their classroom was the cinema.
Great, this is so great, and this gives me a bridge to our next panelist, Stathis Kalogeropoulos, who is the Athens film officer, and in the hopes that your programs, the programs that you all described so far, inspire children and young people to engage professionally with the art of filmmaking or media content developing, or so I know the Athens Film Office has been organizing for several years now the OWL workshops and the industry days every year, and I've been discussing with Stathis his interest into children's media. So this is kind of our bridge to the industry, because, okay, we educate children, we educate young people. If we inspire them to become filmmakers, to become media content developers, to get involved with the audiovisual work, how is this connected to the industry itself?
So that means that we not just block roads.
Okay, yes.
The Athens Film Office was founded in 2020, actually on April 2020. So it's 5 years now. It coincided with an influx of foreign productions coming in, mainly because of the rebate, was the motivation, and that created a bunch of problems to the industry, because the industry before the rebate was very small. Crews of 40 people were considered big production. And suddenly, later in a day, the production companies had to deal with crews of 200, 300, 650. That, having discussions with producers, they were all complaining about the lack of education and the lack of training crews and anything that had to do with building capacity in the ecosystem. So we decided to take action. We tried first to get involved in the crew training, but that was quite difficult. It's expensive, and when you can do that. They're big. I mean, it's not easy to handle that. Then we moved to the second thing and we stayed on, which is the screenwriting developing, and the training of screenwriters. My colleague who's a screenwriter and I designed the program, and that program is an international workshop. It's called the OWL, which is the Bird of Athens. We invite 10 screenwriters from all over the world and Greeks after a call that is being published. This year, we expand the capacity to 16, and 6 will be Greeks. And the idea is to bring these two different worlds together of our own Greek mentality in developing and writing with not sufficient funds to the what the industry wants and how can somebody see his work being actually produced, not just workshopped somewhere in a workshop. The result from that is that right now we have a pool of 30 projects. 4 of them have been optioned, and 1 is going to be filmed in October in England. Unfortunately, the Greek producers haven't taken the risk to invest in stories that are either being able to be shot here or are Greek related. We believe that this will start to change in this year because even the broadcasters have figured out that producing content that has no value and just occupying time, it's not a sound business. So hopefully they will invest too. They will start, and I know that for a fact because they've shown interest in participating in this year's event. So.
May I ask a question? Have you come across any of any production targeted to children or young people in those 5 years?
There are screenwriters that have submitted to us that have written for kids, for Marvel actually, but the projects that come to us, they haven't. They're not that they don't have that age group. But we're not. This is not. This is not one of the program's, let's say, preconditions. If they could submit, yeah, for sure.
But they have they?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
There is a, we've discussed that.
Yeah, I know.
There is a kind of, they don't feel very happy to do that. I don't know. How do the screenwriters say? They want to be in more, Ben-Hur stuff.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, that's our main contribution, and I would like to thank Leonidas for their help and support in each year's event. Hopefully, this year will be even bigger. So you hear that it's going to be bigger. Yeah, I don't have. If you have any questions, if anybody has any questions,
So let's open to the public. Maria Duza over there has a question.
Hi, Maria.
Wait for the microphone, please. Okay.
Hello, thank you very much for all these interesting presentations. I just wondered, when you said that you have these scripts and projects developed, but not picked up by anybody, are these projects developed by writers only or writer-directors who then go on to make them on their own? Or are these scripts available
I had to clarify
be picked up?
The workshop lasts a year. It's not just the 4 days in Athens. So every 3-4 months, they submit second draft, third draft, okay, until it's final. And there's a pitching process at the end at the beginning of the new workshop. The old screenwriters come and they pitch it when there are producers in the room. So.
But what happens to the finished scripts?
Some of them have been optioned, but my complaint was not that they're not picked up by Greek producers.
Yes, but I'm asking because probably I am interested. I mean, so how can one find these scripts? How can, where is that, is there a channel of communication between?
You can contact us and find, we can give you a synopsis, we cannot give you the script. I mean, we can put you in contact with the...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's only script writers who produce them or they're usually directors, writers, as it happens.
Can be any combination.
Can be anything. Have you ever thought of inviting producers at the end of this process?
They're there, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
If we don't have any other question, and because time is pressing, I would like to thank all the panelists and invite David Kleeman to say some closing remarks and some conclusions. Yes, you can go. Oops. Sitting here?
I'm fine. So I'm conscious that a glass of wine to celebrate Maria and Irene's birthdays. So I don't want to take too much of your time. It's been a fascinating 4 days, and I'm always glad to come to Fest, and I really have to thank Lena for inviting me, Katerina for the amazing hospitality while I've been here, and as always, the grandma, Tina Rukaki, who I've known now since 1995 or so, I think. Yeah, something like that. And I've just been so amazed and impressed by the range of media and film literacy, critical literacy programs that are going on across Greece, across surrounding countries. The US is doing much better right now with the National Association for Media Literacy Education. It's really strengthening. But then I come here and I just see how well incorporated it is into government, into schools, into foundations and that. So let me just give you a couple of reflections from the last few days. If we can go ahead and go to the next one. The first two are really just challenges, both to myself and I imagine to all of you, which is when everyone can be a creator, when we all carry in our pockets cameras and editing equipment that goes far beyond what any amateur and most professionals could have owned for themselves just a few years ago. How do we define what distinguishes a filmmaker? Are we all filmmakers? And if so, how do we segment the purposes for which we make films? The ones that we just make because we have a story inside of us that we want to express and we don't care if anyone sees it. The ones that we make because we want to share it with our family, with our best friend. We want to document something important in our lives. The ones we make to go show to a broader audience. So how do you distinguish that in a time when everyone's a creator? Next slide. And similarly, we are all immersed in video and film and images 24/7 right now. Every time we pull out our phones, we can watch short films, we can watch complete feature films on a small phone. Imagine being a director and thinking about someone watching your masterpiece on a 3-inch screen or 4-inch screen. So how do we then go about teaching film literacy when everything is film and media? Next. This is a slide I use often in talks, and it may be the only time you will ever see Jeff Bezos and Piaget on the same slide. Child development, going to the children's side of this, child development doesn't change. The context does. And Piaget says this. He says that development is a universal construct, that regardless of where you grow up, how you grow up, you're going to go through the same stages, but the context in which you go through them is very different. And then to apply to our world, to the industry, to education, to media, what Bezos says is, people ask me all the time, what's going to change in the next 10 years? He says, I think it's a much more important question, what's not going to change? Because if you continually chase trends, if you continually chase the newest thing, then you're always going to be falling behind. But if you go to the essential human behaviors, why we love story, why certain stories affect us so much, why we choose to go and sit in a dark room with other people to watch film, that is a much better indicator. That's a much more stable indicator of how to create. Next. So what that leads me to is make new trends, but keep the old. Every generation creates its own film language. I just chose 2 images that I had on my computer. I'm the advisory board chair to the International Children's TV Festival. So I get to see a lot of television from all over the world. And last year was the 60th anniversary of the festival, so we went back into the archives. The image on top is from the first winner of the Prix Jeunesse in 1964. It's a French film, and it looks to me, when you see, I tried to pick a representative image, but it looks more like kind of French existentialist film than it does like anything we would see on television today. And then I picked one from this past year's festival that is essentially a soap opera for teenagers from Norway. That's you can just see the structure of the images, how different the film language is from what would have been made in 1964. So at the same time, looking at the current day, young people develop their sense of image, their sense of storytelling from so many more ways than we ever did before. Everything is globalized. If you have Netflix, you are seeing films from all over the world. If you have YouTube, you're seeing things from all over the world. I talked earlier today about user-generated content. So we're seeing things made by our peers as well as by professionals. The technologies are much more democratized, whether it's to create or to consume. You can watch YouTube for free for the most part. You can create games, videos for free once you have the device. All these things are new influences that, as I say, tap into the essentials, the Piaget and Bezos essentials of what doesn't change, but they also bring incredibly new context to it. And that means that we should add, not replace. Television didn't replace radio. It made radio rethink its structures. And this goes on with every generation. The internet didn't replace television and so forth. Next slide. I think it was mentioned in one of the opening talks, someone said that the sort of classic definition of what are we looking for in story is a good story well told. That is one of the things that is altering right now. A good story well played. If I immerse myself in a game, as we were talking about during the games panel, if there's a game that I can wander through and explore and meet other people and that, am I part of a story? Am I playing a story? A good story retold. One of the things that I think I'll talk about in just a minute is this is a generation that expects to be allowed to play with the IP, with the stories and the brands that it loves. They want to make fan fiction, fan art, fan games and things like that. So they are taking a story that you may have written and retelling it in the way that they would like to see it. A good story and I'm in it. You think about virtual reality and being immersed in the story. A good story that I told, the Nexus Fairy Tales, I thought was a good example of that. A good story, but tell me if you want something different. Often, as I said, the generation that wants to have an input in this, if you're listening to them, and you may be able to continually adapt your story world, continually add new dimensions that give the audience what it is that they're looking for. A good world, and I'll make the story. The kinds of platforms where you can immerse yourself in a virtual world that someone's created, and you can narrate your own adventure. You can create your own adventure by going the different directions that you want to go. I spoke a bit about it with VR a little earlier, that you and I may have very different experiences in the same immersive space if we take different directions. And then finally, one of my favorite old Sesame Street segments is about the big bad wolf, and They're going through, wandering through, and they come across an animal and they say, he's big and he's bad, but he's not a wolf. A little further, he's big and he's a wolf, but he's not bad. So it's short and it's good, but is it a story? I think we heard about that yesterday with Pavel's talk about short film and how so many of the things that we consume just briefly, that just make a quick impression on us, aren't necessarily what we would consider story. Next. I came across this just as I was on my way over here. This is a guy named Dar Man who told this story on LinkedIn, and I thought it was relevant here that we have a platform bias right now. We think we view film or stories that we see in different places in very different ways. It's probably too small to read, but the short version of this is Dar runs a studio that produces content for YouTube. He was on a plane recently and sitting next to someone who works for one of the traditional studios. And as they got to talking, she asked, what do you do? And he said, I run a studio. I own a studio. And he explained that I explained we produce 3 to 4 hours of scripted content a week, full crews, professional actors, sound stages, wardrobe, post-production, everything. Then she asked, oh, who distributes your stuff? He said, YouTube. That was the end of the conversation. She just couldn't relate from a traditional studio to the fact that he was producing. We still have this concept that YouTube is fail videos or cat videos. It is so much more now that as a distribution method, as an education method, as a place for building audience, as a place for delivering to your fandom and engaging with your fandom, this YouTube has become a very important part of young people in particular's media consumption. Next. So what I think that tells us is we've reached a symbiotic point in film schools, in media education, that the generation needs to know those things that are classic, those things, the history, the lore, the literature of film, and how we've made film for a long time. At the same time, it's time for mutual mentorships, listening to the generation that carries a professional studio with them everywhere that they go, and listening to their versions of story structures and connecting them. You know, I mentioned before how we have game developers in our studio who have been around for 25 years, the 25 years we've been present. We have game developers who taught themselves 5 years ago how to build games. When you put those two perspectives together, you get a much richer result than if you stand apart and say, what you're doing now doesn't really relate to what I'm doing. Next. So I saw this from Kids Radio in one of the presentations earlier on, and as I was looking at it, I was trying to figure out what was striking me about it. And I think it's that kids are missing in it. As consultants in media education, film education, I mentioned before, nothing about us without us. This is how you build trust with this generation. You show that you are listening. You show that you, even if you don't take every suggestion they make, because obviously you can't please everyone, you can't produce for every individual fan, but just the sense that you are listening to your audiences is very powerful. And now, if you are an IP owner, if you're a storyteller, if you've made films, written books, you know that the hardest thing for you to do is to let loose a little of that control. It used to be that if someone made a Lego or a Roblox game around, well, Lego's a good example. You know, if someone had made a game around Lego 15 years ago, Lego's lawyers would have been writing cease and desist letters and saying, please stop, that's our product, you can't do that. At one point, there were 2,000 Roblox games built around Lego. None of them made by Lego. Lego had made the decision, we are going to watch, we're going to make sure no one violates our standards, you know, does something bad with our brand. But we're going to see how our fans want to tell stories with Lego. We're going to see how they want to play with it. And that builds trust, but it also builds knowledge about how your fans perceive your stories. Next. and this is a very good example of that. It's interesting, always interesting to me that when you make a film, when you complete the film, that tends to be it. When you make a game, that's the starting point. You can always modify, update, expand the game. At the same time, young people perceive whether it's the film, the book, the game as the starting point. Now I am the fan, now I'm your fan, and I am going to express myself with it. And just 3 quick examples. Pottermore, when, excuse me, when Harry Potter came out, J.K. Rowling stepped back and allowed fan fiction, fan art, even things that went a little beyond the sort of mores of the books themselves, because she wanted to listen in to how her fans perceived the series. Minecraft started out as a very geeky platform that you really had to want to get your hands into the coding in order to play at first. And then the Minecraft makers started showing YouTube videos of things they were creating. And younger people and less technical people said, "Ooh, that looks like fun. I'd like to play that." The response from Minecraft was to make easier and easier versions so that if you were an original fan, you could still dip your hands into the code and play with it. But if you were a more casual fan, there was a version where you could have a really good time building and telling your own stories. And finally, one of my favorite stories from Roblox is Warrior Cats, a company called Coolaby. It's a publishing company. Warrior Cats was a book series, had millions of books sold, very strong fan base that told YouTube stories, that did fan fiction and fan art. And at one point they said, we should be on Roblox. And they thought, well, instead of building from scratch, instead of starting from the beginning, why don't we look on Roblox and see if there are any Warrior Cats games out there? And they discovered about 10 or 12. And they looked at one of them and said, if we were going to build something from the beginning, this is what we'd make. So why should we spend all that money to start again? Let's just go find the person who made this and make them our official game. It was a teenager in Florida. It remains one of the most popular games on a platform of 9 million games. And the teenager, who is probably no longer a teenager, is still still creating the official game. They give her creative and financial resources, but she understands, they knew that one of their fans could make the best game for them. Next. I heard a couple times talking about attention span. I don't believe that attention spans are getting shorter. I think interest spans are getting shorter. And when there are so many options right now for the ways you can spend your time, media and non-media, young people make much quicker decisions about if something engages them or not. This is the head of one of the cable networks in the US, John Landgraf, and he says something that I think makes a lot of sense, which is every time you choose something, you're unchoosing everything else. And there's this great FOMO, fear of missing out, that maybe I didn't choose the best thing right now. And that, to some extent, accounts for the popularity of something like TikTok, that you don't invest a lot in any one TikTok. I realize from an education, from a literacy viewpoint, that's in some ways a horrifying thing. But you have to understand that's part of the psychology of young people today, that this constant feeling of there's so much out there, how do I know if what I chose is the thing that I really wanted? Next, and last. This is kind of putting together 3 things I heard over the course of the 3 days. So on the first day, someone put up a slide that talked about the different generations, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, millennials, and so forth. And there was a category that was iconic toy. And the iconic toy that was listed for Gen Alpha was the fidget spinner. They were popular for a little while, but in our research, when we ask kids about their favorite toys, their favorite toy is the phone. They see it as a toy. There are so many ways to play with it. So let's start with that's their favorite toy. They have this powerful pocket computer as their favorite toy. Second, Pavel quoted Yuri Menzel saying, you cannot expect to start with a concerto. First, you must learn to play the scales. And then on day 1, Christopher Rust talked about there are many different ways to tell any story. You make decisions as a director constantly about how you want to tell the story. And sometimes you have to have real faith and bravery in order to tell the story the way you want to tell it, not necessarily the way it's always been told. Similar stories have always been told before that. So if you connect these three things, we've got powerful devices in our hands. Young people are playing scales. They're rehearsing the elements of creation from the time they're toddlers. But what we see as, oh, they're so capable with phones, they're so much better with it now, is not critical literacy. It's facility. So how then, putting these three things together, do we lead them from playing scales to playing complete works and presenting brave new performances? Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to talking with you.
Thank you so much, David. And I would like now to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Hellenic Film and Audiovisual Center, ECOMED, Creative Greece, Mr. Leonidas Christopoulos, to give a closing greeting. Please welcome him.
Actually, I've never been alone on the stage, so it's I tend to fear because I got threats from Stathis earlier that it's going to be bigger. I get a little bit scared. So listen, I had my associates had written a very nice closing speech, tell to anybody, a very formal CEO type boring speech. But I leave it aside because I think that what I heard from David and what I heard from the things he said were really inspiring. In what way? I feel, in a sense, that what was told by David was actually the story of ECOMED, to be honest. It's a new narrative. It's a new story. It's a story that we want to tell it with new medium, to young people through their language, through their policy-wise, always talking, to the young people, to the young generation, that creativity has a lot of aspects. It is a narrative that, of course, finds a lot of resistance from more traditional ways of looking at things, and I totally understand it. I totally relate to it because you always have a more traditional way of saying things, but still, when you're talking about creativity, when you're talking about films, when you're talking about, all forms of creativity that have to do with the audiovisual sector, you need to see at the end of the day, what are the channels that you're going to communicate that from a state point of view. Because, states are always, like the bad ones, the ones that are, like bureaucratic and really rigid and really.
There is one truth, if I may interrupt, that technology and the society and the trends run always faster than bureaucratic systems.
Exactly. And since with my former hat as a Secretary General of Digital Policy in the Ministry of Digital Governance, I know that whatever we're talking about and whatever we are discussing, technology is always one step ahead of us, and the young people are always one step ahead of us, and the way they see things are always one step ahead of us. I'm not saying that I know what they're thinking. I'm not saying that I know where things are going to go, but I'm saying that I want to experiment with new things policy-wise, from a policy point of view. And that is why, since we began, we thought that there is a narrative to say here. There is a new thing that we can say here, regardless of politics, regardless of ideologies, regardless of anything, a new way to view creativity in Greece and a new way to view creativity and give this narrative to the younger people, to the younger generation that do not really relate to what our generation has said or is saying. And exactly because technology is really changing everything. And I'm pretty sure that whatever foresight we're trying to do for the next 10 years, it's going to be quite irrelevant. So yeah, probably we need to see what will not change and not what will change, because that will be the actual challenge in the future. But it's what this YouTuber said that you showed, David. It was the traditional way of someone who said, "Oh no, you don't have a studio. You're a YouTuber," to what the younger generation is saying when it comes to creativity and content creation and art. At the end of the day, it's something that we should relate to. We should listen to. We should use those channels. I have been criticized because Ecomed Creative Greece is using a lot of social media to showcase what it's doing because it's not very serious. It's not very good to use social media to show what a government organization is doing, and
It's
you
not
shouldn't
very
be
bureaucratic.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be so extrovert, and you shouldn't be using all those youth channels to show what you're seeing. But it's at the end of the day, we want to be as I think the third quote that you said, we need to be brave enough to tell our story. We shouldn't stop saying our stories because our stories are the new stories. Our stories are not the right ones. It's just another way of saying a story, and it's another way of bringing the young generation toward what we think should do, regardless of whether it's film creation, education, media literacy, or whatever. And that is why Ecomed is going to continue doing what it's doing, and it's going to continue expanding its mission, not just in supporting films with its financial tools. That's a traditional way to do things, but also by supporting these types of dialogues and conversations and networking, because that is what actually creates a very solid foundation for creativity and for the creative sector in Greece. That is my final remarks. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say these things, and we hope for next year as well.
Thank you, Leonidas, for your passionate speech. I'm very glad we convinced you to leave your paper there. And at this point, I think that was a wonderful wrap to this to the 2025 Fest. And at this point, I would like to invite everybody involved, like moderators and panelists and organizers, to be here on stage with us and take a family photo. Thank you. Please come up.